Come one, come all to the After Dark Podcast. The podcast in which Sheriff Anthony does his best to wrangle Konrad through Westworld, one doggone episode at a time. So kick back and grab yourself some Apple Jack, or some Adam's Ale if that's your preferred poison, and get ready for these two wannabe cowboys to ramble the night away. Music was provided by the fantastic Nancy Wyatt and Jared Iscariot. Enjoy the show! Hello, and welcome to the After Dark Podcast. My name is Anthony James, and that there is Konrad. How are you, Konrad?
Hello! I'm very well, thank you. It's Friday night, as Emma Black once sang.
Rebecca Black.
Rebecca Black. Fuck!
Oh,
Fuck!
You've shown yourself to be a fool there, Konrad. You don't even know who Rebecca Black is. You don't know the references.
I was too old for that meme when it was relevant. I'm certainly too old for it now. But yes, it's we're recording this on a Friday, and I'm feeling fine.
Feeling fine. Rebecca Black, feeling fine. Well, sad news, Konrad. Speaking of music, Meatloaf has passed away. Now, I don't know if you were aware of this, but Meatloaf was like a huge part of my teenage years. There was a time, you know in your teenage years when you'd like discover music for the first time? Well, my discovery of music was just listening to Meatloaf for a whole year and only Meatloaf.
Oh wow, that's a commitment to the loaf.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say there.
Yeah, it was just many a rainy Irish night throwing darts in the garage, listening to Meatloaf.
Yeah.
So I've got lots of that lovely. Also, Rocky Horror Picture Show. I saw that far too young, but we've talked about that before. He was fantastic in that.
That's true of a lot of people.
Yeah.
I actually I'd never listened to a full album up until today, and I went and listened when I heard the news. I went and listened to Bat Out of Hell. It's a good album. It's a good album.
Bad Out of Hell 2 is my jam.
That's a good one. Well, I know of the big songs on that one. Yeah. That's got a couple of great ones. But I mean, it's a bold man that starts his debut album with a 10-minute song. That's what I like to call a statement song. And Bat Out of Hell, just like, why don't we open with a little bit of a mood setting?
Yeah. Meatloaf is not a man who did things by half. He's a great fella. He had a whale of a voice. I absolutely loved him. So rest in peace, Meatloaf.
Yeah.
Objects in the rearview mirror may appear closer than they are. You said 10-minute song. That was just a cracker. That is a really... you think I'd Do Anything for Love is like a really long, sort of slow ballad. Objects in the rearview mirror may appear closer than they are is... Chef's Kiss. Go and listen to that one. Many a triple 20 was hit on that. But all right, guys. So this week we're on episode 6, season 3 of Westworld.
Yep.
And we are going to be discussing it, tearing it apart. I actually quite enjoyed this episode, Konrad. I don't know about you, but I actually like the tension in this one.
There's definitely good stuff in it. I didn't dislike it. I've got a couple of issues.
Didn't say there weren't any issues, Konrad. Let's not have a repeat of the best movie podcast ever here. We're not going to.
Yeah. As we all know, I am a glass half empty kind of man. Like if I always lead with the problems I have with something for fear of coming across as too enthusiastic.
Yeah, I'm the complete opposite of that. I would say I'm a glass half full kind of person, but I actually think I like to try, like if the glass is half full or half empty, whatever, it's got 50% liquid in it. If you hold it up higher than your eye line, it looks 80% full. And that's the type of guy I am. If I see a half full glass, I will lift it up so it looks 80% full. And that's what I am like. So appreciate the good things in the life, guys. And that'll do us for this week. But all right, Konrad, first let's get into this. So we're doing episode 6. We start off in Maeve's sort of dreamland, according to Serac.
Yep.
And he sort of talks about the idea that needs to help him get rid of Dolores. Yeah. She wants a bit of help.
This is the first time we've seen this, right? This simulated version of the paradise that all the hosts went to.
Yeah, it's kind of like a mimic version of it, isn't it?
See, how does he know about it?
He knows everything.
I guess he's got Maeve, so technically he could get her memories, maybe.
Maybe, yeah. Actually, maybe that's it. He's just reading the code.
But that was like my first thought was like, aren't these people on Saturn now? Like, hasn't every trace of it? The whole point of this is like every trace of it has been lost, so these hosts can live in peace away from humans. But I guess I guess Maeve is like the weak link in that.
I think it's just I think Serac is meant to just be the embodiment of, and he knows everything because of Rehoboam.
Yeah, he definitely does in this episode. There's a lot of things where it's like, and I this isn't a criticism because it's just like there's a lot of like kind of narrative shorthand, but there's a lot of things that he just knows, and it's conceivable that he would eventually find them out because he could check the Delos files or whatever.
Yeah.
But there's been none of that. Nothing showing that he knows these things. It's just like, I know this thing that you did in season 1.
yeah. He just knows everything. But you know what? That's what he's like. He's come up from the hard torn streets of France, and he's
well, I mean,
big swinger.
they definitely were hard torn. They were they were obliterated.
Yeah, actually, it was very so and on fire, and there was a lot of fire in this episode at the end, which we'll talk about when we get there. But okay, so the three main storylines here were Maeve's one, then we had William's one, and we also had who's the other one? Charlotte, yeah, and actually
Charlotten.
Huh?
I said it with a German accent.
Charlotte.
And yeah,
Charlotte Doppler. No, but Charlotte is. I think Charlotte in this season, Charlotte Dolores. She's one of my favorite characters of this season. I like the way that she's sort of grabbing onto Charlotte Hale's life, and there's even a few comments from Serac about Charlotte is actually she's a better Charlotte than, or she loves her family more than the other Charlotte. What did you think? Like, so it's not goodbye for the character, but it's definitely a shift after this episode, I would say.
Yeah, so there's this is the one I think that I had that had the highest highs and the lowest lows in this episode for me. I think there's some really cool stuff in there for Charlotte. I enjoyed like the escape sequence once she's found out. The one thing I wasn't really sure about, and I will lead off with this by admitting maybe I've just forgotten this happening. But so she is eventually she's given the task of rooting out the host, the undercover Dolores in Delos or Insight, or I guess the implication is he wants her to look specifically in Delos because why would she look at Insight, the other companies? But she needs to root out the host by Engelbert Humperdinck, and eventually is revealed that he knew it was her the whole time, and his reasoning for finding her out is essentially that she has too close a relationship with Charlotte's son and her ex, and that the real Charlotte would have never done that.
Which is nonsense because the whole world's in chaos now.
Yes, there's that, but the thing that I wasn't sure about and that like I felt very skeptical about when that was revealed is that I think the only time we've seen Charlotte interact with them is when she first met the son in the episode probably 2 or 3 episodes ago, and then murdered a paedophile in a playground. I think that's the only other time her son has been in this entire show.
Yeah, she also read him a book and sang him a song. At the end of that episode, I guess she did. Yeah, she sang him the song. I don't know. It just didn't ring true to me that she's had the time to build up this relation. It felt undercooked, that relationship between Charlotte and her son. I could see that. It wasn't given as much screen time as it should have been. There has been other stuff going on with other characters though, so it could have happened off screen. But yeah, you don't have the same sort of build up in terms of our viewing of it. Yeah. So maybe it rings a little hollow. I personally think that Tess Thompson's doing a great job of the performance. So I sort of went along with it. I know what you mean, but compared to some other stuff in the show, I wasn't hating that. But I know what you mean. No. That it maybe does ring a little hollow in terms of like the screen time lacking.
But you're right. Tessa Thompson is doing a great job with it. I think what happens to her at the end of this episode is the culmination of a really, really like well-paced character arc, and like the kind of lingering shot on her at the end of this episode is horrific and just great as well. It's like there's so much emotion in her horrifically burned up face. At the end of this
tear.
Episode.
Do you think that was a real tear, or do you think that was CG?
I'm gonna say it was a real tear.
Yeah, we'll not judge her for a CG tear, but we'll say it's a real tear. We'll just go with it.
I think she did it. I think she has the prowess to summon a tear at will.
Queen of Valkyrie. No, it's Queen of Valkyrie. Queen of New whatever it's called.
New Asgard.
Asgard.
Is that what you're talking
New
about?
Asgard, yeah.
She is a Valkyrie. So the two things that I really want to praise about the Charlotte storyline, because there are a couple.
Or I call her, as I call her now, I call her One Face.
Oh yeah, yeah. I guess that is yeah. Yeah, she is. She just has one horrifically burned. It's not a coin. It's just a ball that she throws in the air. And she gets like, well,
one
guess
surface.
I gotta shoot you.
Yeah.
So there's funny parallel. Like obviously there's parallels between Maeve and Charlotte in this episode. Like they're very clearly drawing the parallels, so the narratives can kind of intertwine, and both lose someone in a pretty climactic moment, and then have this kind of T-1000 in Terminator 2 moment where they emerge from either a burning wreckage or like liquid, like naked and ready to fuck some shit up, which I did quite like. But the moments I really like for her, the escape sequence is really exciting and really well shot, I thought. Loved seeing the big robot coming into play.
Chekhov's
it was
robot.
always on the card. Chekhov's robot came in, yeah. I'm always a big
so
fan
lazy,
of
such lazy writing. Honestly, oh god, I like it. Obviously, I like it. I like the robot, but why does every single film and show have to be like, we want a big robot in it? Okay, let's pop it in the first episode, and we'll never mention it again. Like, what? Why is every show the same? Like, I understand the storytelling device, so we, it's not a. They're so afraid of having or being accused of having a Deus Ex Machina that they're like, we got to show it first, so that they're so afraid of it.
It's been it's an interesting point, because I'm pretty sure it's been said at some point that Delos has some military application. I think it was probably in the first season they were like, the military are interested in the application of this. So there's you could definitely have like Charlotte walking into a warehouse full, or like like an armory full of these robots, and being like, oh no, I don't know how to pilot one of these things, and then just sticking like the Matrix bit, like where I need to learn how to fly a helicopter. She just sticks her arm into a jack in the wall, and it's like, now I know how to pilot them because we've got all this, these training modules in Delos's databases. You could have done something like that. I didn't mind it too much though. Whatever gets a big robot fight, I'm fine with.
I don't mind it. I just mean that, like, why has Hollywood not come up with a different way to foreshadow? It's like,
yeah, that's true.
That's the only way to foreshadow. It's
you're basically coming after the Chekhov estate here and being like, he's had his time.
He's had his time. We need to figure out, like, literally James Bond films literally have like a Chekhov segment. But it's not C, it's Q, and he's literally like, this is gonna pop up later, this is gonna pop up later, this is gonna pop up later. Off you go,
Yeah, it just gets it all out of the way nice and early. That's what that's about. So one thing that didn't actually, no, that's not true. This did work for me in the Charlotte and Maeve storyline, but I think I feel a little bit disappointed in myself for it working on me, and that is Hector's 7th or 8th death in the series at this point.
Well, this one seems to be for good. Although I will say,
the nut is gone.
Okay. Let me say this about the nut, right? The fruit within. I personally, I like the aesthetic of the nut. I talked to you about before. I like how the machines, in a really overdramatic way, pick up the nuts, and they, I like the design. Don't get me wrong, I love the design, but I don't actually. If you ask me, would I prefer the robots or the hosts to have a physical thing that if it's destroyed, they're gone, or not? I would prefer not. I kind of don't. I don't mind it, but I think I would prefer if they had designed the show in a way that there was like a natural backup or something. Like, I don't like that. I don't like that they are as fallible as a human. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. It's especially it feels a bit cheap, especially when they keep doing it and then keep bringing people back. The amount of time, and not specifically with the nut getting crushed or whatever, but like there's only so many times you can kill a host and have like a big emotional send off for the host, and then have them come back to life. Like literally, Dolores and Maeve and Charlotte, in fact, although she was a human when it happened to her, but they've all had these big like death sequences, and Lee's in this episode as well, and they're just like, for all intents and purposes, those characters are back. I know Lee is in a simulation and he's he's not actually alive, from like a narrative perspective, he's essentially there. He's hanging out and cracking jokes with Maeve in the simulation, so So them introducing this like shorthand for, oh no, this thing's been destroyed, we're going to have a really emotional death sequence. It's kind of like, it doesn't really make that much sense because they're robots.
Yeah.
Like, so they'd be a backup.
Maybe
and
that's why
it feels a bit cheap.
Maybe that's why Konrad. I'm not fully on board with it because it feels like having your cake and eating it too. Like the idea of being able to bring them back and back and back again is fine. That's one idea. But then the idea of having the fallible nut that can be crushed as well, it's like in my mind, it's like one or the other. You know, you got
absolutely.
So they've established them coming back so much, and now Hector's had his nut crushed. I think it's the first nut we've seen crushed. So maybe.
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe in season 4 we'll see a shift away from the backups coming back and back and back. So maybe
there'll just be another nut. Maeve will find another Hector nut, and it'll be like, "Oh, Hector, I've missed you," and they'll be in, I don't know.
I found an old build.
Yeah, Neil. Oh, that's the classic storyline.
Yeah.
She brings Hector back, but he has no memory of their love. It's like a telenovela.
They already did that this season, kinda, didn't they?
They did do that already.
Although it wasn't really old memories. It was like a new character kind of thing they put into him.
Yeah.
But and then
I'll tell you who's not coming back, and that is Maeve's, or that is Charlotte's rather, son and ex. They are, I think, very dead at the end of this episode.
Very dead. Although, who knows? Maybe Charlotte created a red nut of them, like Barnold's nut, you know? But who knows with these nuts? This is not the nut technology is at the forefront of design. But what else?
I'm going bloody nuts talking about all these.
Yeah. One more thing about the nuts before we move off the nuts.
Okay.
I'll just say this. I think that the explanation as to why Maeve could bring Hector's memories back was a bit lazy.
Yep.
So
just a literal hand wave almost.
Well, yes, but you know, but did you catch the line, Konrad, that they tried to justify why she couldn't just do that the first time? The line was, she's like, I can see where you are out there now, so now I can bring you back in here. So she's like, the idea that she could kind of sense or see the room that they were all getting made in. Like she was like, she literally, the line was, or something almost to the point, to exact word was, I can see you there, so I can bring you back here, or something like that. I was like, how does that make any sense?
I do vaguely remember that, and it was definitely one of those moments. And Westworld does have these occasionally where it's just like, okay, fine, I'll let you get away with that, but it's not very good what you've just done there.
Like I do not get it. That was a very strange thing. But anyway, yeah. So Maeve is doing what she's doing. She's back.
Yeah.
Better than ever, and she is going to. She doesn't have any. She wanted friends, but now she's really, like, they've turned what could have been an interesting, storyline of Maeve actually getting onto the side of Serac and buying into his thing, and now they've just turned it into wants to kill Dolores because Hector's dead.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where
and they left it late in the season. They've waited till 3 episodes to go just to say she wants to kill you because you killed her boyfriend. Like,
yeah, and it's an oversimplification of what could have been a really interesting storyline, I think, because I understand why they did it, but Serac is clearly a villain in this. There's they've kind of shifted him away from having some interesting ideas and just being villainous about the way he goes about achieving them to someone who's just a bad guy. And in doing that, they've had to shift Maeve away from, as you say, allying with him and give her a more kind of personal motivation for what she wants to do, which is avenging Hector, which I get, but I feel like there's a much more interesting kind of thematic clash they could have there with, Dolores's the fate of all the hosts is like rests in my hands versus Maeve's more personal, like I don't know, freedom of hope. I mean, it's not really freedom that she's after, but she's more about letting the hosts do what they want to do and kind of live free of humans.
It is a bit lazy in my opinion. I think like it's like, okay, how do we get Maeve to fight for the bad guys? How do we make her appear not as a bad guy, even though she's kind of on that side? Let's have her have to avenge someone. It's like it's. And the thing is, Konrad, if this was what she was like at the start of the season, this happened, and then like she was slowly being more indoctrinated by Serac and stuff, that would have been okay. But like, it's literally, they're like, okay, we've got 3 episodes to go in this season.
Yeah,
we've got to have her want to kill Dolores. Serac's not doing the job. It's like the writers like disappointed in the character of Serac. Like, you're not doing the job here, mate. Let's just kill Hector.
Yeah, we gotta. I mean, they probably started the season. This is maybe a bit disingenuous of me, but I feel like they probably started the season with the idea of Maeve and Dolores being the big fight at the end.
Oh, of course.
And,
No, of course.
And then worked backwards from there. I will say, actually, speaking of Maeve fights, one of the things I really didn't like about this, and it's not, they don't spend a long time on it, but her just like randomly killing Nazis in Warworld as a form of like just exercise. Like, what are you doing? Like, what is the point of this? This is
always
just like
happy that Nazis
scene.
are being killed, is what I'll just say.
I mean, yeah, that's
but
true.
we can all imagine that. Like, we don't like with this a huge multi-million-dollar budget. We don't just need to be like, it's actually quite good because she's killing Nazis, and they were bad.
Yeah.
They were bad.
But it's just an action scene for the sake of an action scene. Like, there's no reason to have that.
They paid all the extras. They may as well just do one more.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they've got. Look, it takes a long time to do Maeve with that hair. All right, like Thandie Newton, she was in makeup for a long time to get ready for Warworld, so they filmed a couple of extra fight sequences just to sprinkle them in the edit, and they used one here for some reason.
It's funny, like when I watched this the first time, rewatching it this time after they finished Warworld a few episodes ago, I was like, hang on, there was more than Warworld than that. I was like, hang on, that seems so short. I remember seeing more Warworld, and then lo and behold, we go back for no reason. Like, I don't really understand why she was in Warworld. Why did she have to go and find her friends in the program? I don't. Yeah,
it's just a way of tarting up the action and the narrative, I think, in the same way that, you know, they used the I can't remember the name of it now, genre in the previous episode to make a car chase more exciting by giving it another layer of stylization. Yeah. That's all that is. I mean, she'll probably go to bloody Raj World next week or something. You know, we'll revisit the Raj.
Like, think about what this show was in the first season. And now we've just got a season of television which is all designed around two women fighting at the end. Like, okay, there is still some kind of interesting stuff going on in terms of, like, you know, the sort of humanity on the tracks that's been, like, now dislodged into craziness. And, you know, I think season 4 might be interesting, but we are a far cry from the quality of the first season here. Let's be honest.
Yeah, the first season felt very singular in what it was trying to achieve, and although some of the writing, particularly around like the Man in Black's pursuit of the weird maze thing, felt a bit like it didn't actually know what it was saying, and it was you know, just kind of salvaged in the final few episodes. For the most part, it was all very singular, felt very focused, and this is just kind of, this whole season, there's been some great stuff in this season, and the stylistic stuff that's good is really good, but it is kind of all over the place this season, I think.
Yeah, exactly. It's America's Got Talent syndrome. They spent 5-6 years writing the first season, and then they just were like, "Hey, that's great. Make us another one. 3 months to write it."
Yeah. Like, what? We need to get Ed Harris on the phone now.
Yeah, it's like, I always laugh at like those talent shows when there's like someone comes out and does a trapeze act, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, golden buzzer, golden buzzer!" And you've got, like, you know, "Look at the stars," you know, all the music's going, and then next round they're literally in the next round episode for 30 seconds, just like Simon Cowell going, "It's just not good the second time," you know.
Yeah, it's still just a big swinging stick. Ultimately,
yeah, exactly. I just love it.
I was wrong to put it. Yeah, like it's exactly true.
Right. Okay. So. This last one, then, we're talking about therapy with Mr. William. Well, therapy with many Williams, we'll say. I will jump right ahead of you, Konrad, in not very traditional fashion of this podcast, but I will jump right ahead of you. And I did not like the fact that William has apparently been a psychopath since he was a child.
Yeah,
I think that is very... It destroys the character development from season 1. I don't know what they're doing.
So there's two things I hate about that character development. I don't often say I hate things, but I really did hate that. The first is that the hastily constructed, his dad was an abusive alcoholic backstory as a tool for kind of explaining what his character's kind of psychosis.
So many cliches in this episode.
Yeah, that on its own is a cliche. And then the fucking gall of them writing Jim Delos to lampshade it and say, "Oh, this isn't an excuse for anything." It's like, you can't write a bad cliched backstory and then have another character say, "This is a bad cliched backstory," and that doesn't make the bad cliched backstory better. It just draws attention to it.
Remember the mystery and the intrigue in this character in season 1, and now we are told that he's like basically just a psychopath who has always been a psychopath. Like I don't know about you, Konrad, but even the way they put across was pretty weird. Like, okay, I understand being annoyed at your child for going over the top and beating the hell out of someone who was mean to them. You know, you should teach your children to stand up for themselves. But if they go over the top and then like get to the point where they're the aggressor, okay, then there's a conversation to be had there. Is it enough for you to say that child is a psychopath?
Yeah, I just so I mean that's the other thing as well. Is it's I don't think it really adds anything to the character. I think it's not delivered or explored very well in this episode. I think the most frustrating thing about it is it comes in a really interesting kind of setting for William. Like that moment when first off, the one thing I'll say is this is called augmented reality. It's an AR session. It's clearly virtual reality. This is not augmented anything. This is this is the most like high fidelity virtual reality I've ever seen.
What you've just said, Konrad, explains the writing of this season completely to me. They don't even know what they're talking about.
When he said AR, I was like, oh, okay, so he's going to have like some kind of overlays on, the real world that are going to...
He was strapped to a chair the whole time.
He was strapped to a chair and he was wandering round in his own mind as he explored a completely different room. It's
augmented.
Virtual reality.
It's augmented.
There's nothing augmented about that.
It's not Mario running across. It's not augmented at all.
Yeah, it's like he's not playing fucking Pokemon Go on those glasses.
I love it. Imagine that it was like the circle around and then you just had like Raichu sitting there.
Yeah. Just a coughing turns up. But the setup is really cool. Like him sitting in a room. It's a very like kind of, it's going to sound all like arty farty, but a very kind of like Samuel Beckett style idea of sitting in this room with the kind of ghosts of your past, and them having a kind of character assassination of you as you try to figure out at what point in your life it went off the rails. I think that's like a stage play. It's a really cool idea, and I think the setup for it is great in terms of characterization as well, because the fact that Jim Delos is there, I know I'm maybe giving the writing more credit than it deserves here, but the fact that Jim Delos is there kind of implies that other people who are important to him other than other versions of himself could have been included, but the fact it's just Jim Delos and then 5 versions of himself really confirms William's narcissism, which I'm like, that makes sense. Like his wife isn't there, his daughter isn't there, his son isn't there, or wait, hold on, was Logan was Jim Delos' son, wasn't it? But Logan's not there. It's just Jim and then 5 different versions of himself, which sounds about right. But so that setup is really cool, and I think some of the conversations they have are really interesting as well. I even don't mind the sort of hyper-violent ending to it as he kind of tries to exorcise the demons. But as you say,
exorcise the demons.
But it's so. They couldn't resist trying to wrap it up in a neat little bow rather than just being like, let's give the Man in Black 15 minutes to have a conversation with himself where they talk about, the nature of fate and how much choice did you really have, because that's the whole thing about this. The big theme of this season is, how much do we choose our own paths? How much is it set before we, are even born? Mm-hmm. I totally get what they're going for, and they totally could have done it, but instead it's just like, his father was a bit abusive and an alcoholic, and he was a psychopath as a baby. So,
he just realized he has to lean into that. And then, like, again, more self-referential, like the writers being self-referential as well in terms of the Jimmy Simpson version, who's saying stuff like, "I was the best of you," and like that might have been true, or like even saying, whenever like they clearly showed that he's been this like crazy guy, psychopath, whatever you want to say, from a young age. It then shows Jimmy Simpson. He goes, "So I really had no choice. I was always going to end up as like you." It's like, why are you having the actor who played such a fantastic character in the
battering you over the head with the characterization?
Like, they made him put the nail in the coffin of his own character,
because his character wasn't like that as well. No. Also, I will say, just lovely to see Jimmy Simpson back. Absolutely lovely to see him back. But yeah, like it's a real shame to have. You have Ed Harris, and I don't actually know the name of the actor who plays Jim Delos, but he's good fun as well. Mm-hmm. And Jimmy Simpson in the same room, and you could have such great conversation and dialogue between those guys. You could really, really like get into that character, and instead, unfortunately, it's just like, I never had a chance to begin with. I was always going to be this way, and then he just beats them all to death, and that's the end. And that's the end of it.
That's the end.
Yep. Yeah, that's a real disappointing. Well, I mean, it's not quite the end because old B-Dog turns up at the end.
Barnold himself, but
Barnold, yeah.
Barnold and Ashley Stubbs turn up. What? I obviously,
I do not know what's going on.
the answer must be in the next episode, but I just can't remember.
I hope so.
But I had the same reaction as if I was watching it the first time. I was like, "Why are they there?" And I knowing this show in third season, I wouldn't be surprised if the next episode they say that they came to get him, even though at the end of this episode they said, "Oh, they must have left him here. What's going on?" And it was acting as if they didn't expect to see him there.
Yeah, it doesn't. That ending, it's a very kind of like reverse Poochie in the Simpsons situation where it's like, we need to get him out of here somehow. Who's free? I don't know. Barnold and Ashley haven't got a plot line anymore. Let's just stick them there. They come to this clinic to, I don't know, try and find some records on what's his face, the Insight CEO or something. I don't know. Like it's going to be something hand waved.
It's literally actually it does literally feel like it's like the WWE Raw after a pay-per-view, and the main guy's just finished his big championship run, and he's like, who are we gonna have him fight the next night on Raw? And it's like I don't know who's around in the locker room. Him?
Yeah. Out comes Randy Orton.
Yeah.
Okay. Barnold is the Randy Orton. He's always reliable, but you're not that excited to see him. To be honest.
But he does hear voices in his head too, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that is very true. They do counsel him.
Yeah, and he's always been a psychopath since a child, that man. So it's all working out here. So there we go. Anyway, that's Westworld episode 6. We've only got 2 to go, Konrad. Would you believe? Yeah,
it's wrapping up.
Season 4 coming out this year though, so we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, I am enjoying it still. It is the good stuff in here is still really good. It's just a shame. It's just the writing is still it's not there. Like Lisa Joy and Jonathan Nolan just aren't very good at writing. Yeah, unfortunately.
Well, remember in season 1 we were talking about, apparently there was like a leak out saying that the editors saved season 1. Like the editors, the whole cast and crew and the writers and all, whenever they finished filming season 1, they gave the stuff to the editors and they were like, "There we go, let's go party." And the editors were like, hang on a minute, this doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Yeah, they had it to the editors and they're like, "Boys, get the coffee on. We've got our work cut out."
So maybe that is actually ringing true in these second 2 seasons. I don't know.
Yeah, they just don't seem to be able to keep a consistent characterization going for an entire season of television. Never mind 3 or 4. But I mean, they are saved by the big set pieces and the stylistic stuff. There's definitely like that. I guess it's possibly partly them and partly like the sort of production design of the show. Yeah. But it's when it's good, it's still really good. Westworld, I will say.
Oh yeah, and also I thought Charlotte Hale like getting the jacket, the really like sort of jacket ripped off, and then all of a sudden she looked like she was there for a fight. Even like the costume almost kind of looked like she was wearing armor, and I just I thought she did a really good job in like the action scenes and that. And I actually am really interested to see where now in season 4. I mean, like there obviously is going to be a couple of stuff in the next couple of episodes, which I'm not going to tell you about. But in season 4, even I'm looking forward. And actually, that I might come across as a fool here because I genuinely can't remember if Charlotte Hale survives this season or not.
Okay.
So I'm kind of like a half and half. First time watching now. I remember what happens with the main characters, but Charlotte Hale is sort of, to me now, it's like, okay, she's been burnt. We'll see what happens now because I'm interested to see where it goes. It's almost like she's.
I'm more interested in the Charlotte Dolores Maeve clash than the regular Dolores Maeve, because Dolores hasn't really done the real Dolores hasn't really done anything to Maeve. Whereas like this episode, talking about the editing being good, there's that brilliant intercutting of Charlotte crushing Hector's brain nut. And it like kind of dripping through her fingers, and then Maeve kind of waking up out of the milk to come after her, and it's just this real kind of heightening of the tension and sort of speeding up of the pace of the episode that really got me. So I'll kind of be disappointed if it's now, I don't know, Charlotte's off doing something else now, and it's going to be Dolores versus Maeve instead.
Yeah. We'll end it on this, Konrad. I've got one bone to pick. Well, I've picked a lot of bones, but this is my little technical bone. You know how I sort of try to view things very technically. Now, when Hector's nut was taken out by Charlotte, he didn't fall down then.
No.
He didn't actually start to die, or whatever you want to say, till it was crushed. Now, I want to know, why does Hector's nut have a Wi-Fi connection to this simulation? But as soon as you unplug the Dolores one, which was in Collins, she immediately goes. Why is Hector's nut have Wi-Fi capabilities here?
That's a good point.
It doesn't make any sense. They wanted the shot of her crushing it and then he dies, but it doesn't make any sense. Yeah,
that is a good point. I don't think there's any justification for that. It's just another one of those things where it's like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Or it's like, you know, the random access memory is actually in the housing of the nut, so he had a little bit of himself left. But then why would the RAM then know that his nut was crushed?
Yeah, if anything, he should just. I mean, if you want to get into the hardware specifics of this, there's probably no hardware operating on that nut at all.
Yeah.
So it's already loaded Hector into memory in the simulation, so he should keep on running without problem. Unless it's like, you know, constantly re-authenticating back to the nut to make sure that it's staying true to the character. But
very strange.
I'm not gonna get into the networking possibilities of.
But that's my point, Konrad. I think we need to, but we'll leave it there for this week anyway. Right, guys. Well, let us know any questions for us in the comments, anything like that. We're always happy to hear them. And thanks very much for listening this week. We'll be back next week with episode 7, the penultimate episode. Catch us on the Culture Cave doing all sorts of other stuff, and we will see you next week. Goodbye.
Goodbye.